He's member of parliament for Yape Kusogo, ranking member on the Mines and Energy Committee. I hope you're well, by the way. It's been quite a while.
Yeah, I've been quite tight with some academic work.
I can imagine.
You'll hear from me very soon.
I'm hoping so. More of you. Let me first start with this matter of JWR Holdings Limited. I think the last time when this conversation started, it was concluded, I think even on the floor of Parliament, that they were going to move the shares to GMPC at some point. And from reading the statement that you have issued, which your leader has issued, it's clear that that has not happened. What is the situation?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. You are right. As we speak, the shares that were acquired 2 years ago have not been transferred to GMPC as was promised by GMPC itself. And as was stated, when GMPC appeared before the ad hoc committee of Parliament, and as was stated in GMPC's own press release, and I'll share the press release with you, more than a year ago, this around January 2022, so about 1.5 years ago. So clearly, something doesn't add up. Somebody somewhere is attempting to use very unorthodox means to use these shares that were acquired by the state, the Republic of Ghana, at a cost of $164 million. Somebody and private people are attempting to use some very unorthodox means to virtually sell off the shares to some entities within the system. Indeed, one would have thought that by now the shares would have been transferred to GMPC in order to ensure proper accountability, and then we can take it up from there. Our checks and our sources from GMPC confirmed to us earlier that Mr. Stredible was having some clandestine meetings with Petro SA of South Africa, and that he had virtually agreed with them to sell off 50% of the 7% to Petro South Africa. I mean, that was very, very strange. But first of all, he doesn't really have the power. It's a national asset. And why would the board chair be involved in negotiations and selling of shares? Normally, it's management that will do that and bring management's decision to the board for approval. But for the board chair to assume the role of management and sit around the table to negotiate and sole moto attempt to offload those shares, very, very unfortunate. In any serious jurisdiction, this board chair would have been fired by now. But that is not the only problem. If people think that the problem is just about selling of the shares or transferring of the shares, there's another leg of it. And please, this is what I want us to pay attention to. The finance minister, Mr. Kenoforiata, in another leg, or is it on another leg, quietly and surreptitiously, is trying to sell the shares to Litasco. That is what has brought the fight, not because they want to protect the shares. Stredible and his group wants to sell the shares to Petro SA. Mr. Kenoforiata wants to front sale our oil receipts from this 7% to Litasco. And that is where we ought to be very, very careful, so that we do not allow either party to front sell these shares. And for me, that is the most important thing. Fortunately, Parliament is resuming on Tuesday. I've had discussions with the minority leader. Why they don't want to bring these shares to GMPC is simple. Under the IMF program, all covered entities, and when we say covered entities, we are talking of these state-owned entities whose liabilities can crystallize and would affect the national debt. For instance, when Dr. Baumia indicated that he was doing a battle with Sinohydro, we cautioned that it will hit the national debt. He insisted that we did not read. Eventually, we've been vindicated, and he was peddling falsehood. Tesla debt the same. Action, which is the education sector debt, the same. So the IMF is insisted that all these entities, before they borrow, they must take clearance from the IMF. So if they transfer the shares to GMPC, they can no longer engage in this borrowing spree. That is why they don't want to transfer the shares. And my indication is that the finance minister is seeking to borrow $650 million on the back of JWR, and then front sell all the oil receipts to Litasco. I mean, we cannot allow this. And you see, I hear a lot of people, oh, what is the minority doing? We just talk. We can't do anything. It may be true. These are the numbers you gave us in Parliament. The MPP and its members have succeeded in using the courts to deny the assent of MP from representing us or joining us. And so it's not a matter for the minority, it's a matter for Ghana. Those oil fields, they do not belong to me. It's not John Jinapor's property. And it's not Honorable Atwoforson and the minority's property. And not is it even the NDC's property. It's the property of Ghana. So all those media houses who call us, what is the minority doing? We just make noise. We don't do anything. My question is, what are you also doing as a journalist? What are you doing as a civil society organization? Are you happy with the way Ghana's oil resources are being managed? It's not a battle for the minority alone. So I want to use your medium, and your medium goes very far. Independent people should also get involved and not leave the fight to the minority alone. We can only fight to a certain level. But if all Ghanaians will not allow it, President Akufo-Addo and his president cannot just sell these oil resources today. What would the future generation also come to depend on? Today, you think this country is bankrupt, and yet you haven't learned any lessons from your borrowing spree. You still want to borrow money. It's most unfortunate.
For the benefit of education, I want to understand, what difference would it make if the shares are held by GMPC or held by JWR? What would be the difference?
Once it's held by GMPC, immediately comes under Petroleum Revenue Management Act 815. And Act 815 is stringent, it is strict. There is proper oversight in terms of oil approval by Parliament. So all revenues accruing from our petroleum resources, you ought to come to Parliament, number one. Two, all the funds ought to be deposited in the Petroleum Holding Fund. The Petroleum Holding Fund would then ensure that, first of all, GMPC's carried interest, which is tranche A in terms of the expenditure A accounted for. Then net of equity and carried or participating interest, the remaining amount is shared in accordance with the sharing structure as established under the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, i.e., 70% goes into annual budget funding amount, and even that 70%, it must go into prior predetermined critical areas such as infrastructure, agriculture, education, and the remaining 30% is a split. I think I'll just check 9 and 21%, but I'll just check. But that 30% is split between the Heritage Fund and the Stabilization Fund. So there's proper accountability and there's proper oversight. And then after that, it is audited. And then PIAC, which is the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, also steps in to ensure that the right thing is done. When COVID struck and President Akufo-Addo was found wanting, he had to go into the Stabilization Fund and take 1.2 billion cedis of those money that President Mahama had accumulated to spend on COVID-related expenditure. President Mahama had also engaged in this reckless way of spending and decided that we will go and borrow against our oil revenues or our oil receipts. Would President Akufo-Addo would have gotten that 1.2 billion to spend? So when we raise these issues, these are legitimate issues. It may be partisan, It's not about MPP or NDC. We're talking of serious national issues. And yet some people want to trivialize it and turn it into NDC, MPP affair. I mean, I find it very, very unfortunate and disheartening.
So, Honorable, you're saying that this is money that it is claimed belong to the government of Ghana or the people of Ghana, but it's not regulated by any law of Ghana. Doesn't fall under the regulation of any law of Ghana.
Absolutely. Even the shares that were acquired, they were acquired in lieu of tax obligation. And Adako had been affected, and they were supposed to pay some taxes. And they said, we cannot pay the tax. We said, if you cannot pay the tax, give us shares. The Republic, the whole state, in lieu of the shares. Finance Minister then insists that GMPC must pay that money because it's a tax that he would have gotten into the consolidated fund. GMPC has paid the money. Transfer the shares to GMPC, you don't want to transfer. Now you want to go and borrow on the back of those shares that GMPC has paid you already. What kind of attitude is that?
And this is where I'm coming to. So, having said that, if the finance minister decides to borrow $50 million using the shares we have in JWR, does it mean that it doesn't have to come to Parliament, come to you at all? Let's go ahead and do it.
He's trying to break every law. But if he breaks the law, what can you do unless you take him to court? I mean, I don't want to do this court matters. Let's just settle it in the court of public opinion. First of all, Petro SA is an international company. Under the Constitution, if you want to go into a transaction with an international body, I'm sorry, I have a bit of cold. You have to come to Parliament. They don't want to do it. The finance minister wants to borrow money with Letasco, and he's deliberately setting up a local company here and making it look like they are borrowing the money from the local company so that he doesn't come to Parliament. What kind of attitude is that? Transfer the share to GMPC. Simple. We don't want any Kululu. We don't want any Kanana. Just transfer the shares to GMPC. After transferring the shares, we can talk about any other matter. It's as simple as that.
And that is basically the original commitment they made, which they have broken. Perhaps because where it is makes it easier for them to do what they are doing. And every time, and I heard you say that this is not a minority versus majority matter, it's a Ghana matter. But always it comes back to Parliament. And when we say Parliament, maybe others refer to the minority, but we mean Parliament as a whole. Is that to say there's no agreement? There's no way you can agree as Parliament to insist on this? It's impossible?
A lot of the majority members, when I interact with them, especially after educating them, they just say, how? We can't agree to this. They must bring the shares to GMPC. So you attempt to sanction the finance minister and see what will happen. 80 of them said they didn't want the finance minister. We said we agree with them. We went through the process. At the critical moment when we needed to vote, what happened? So there's precedent. They don't like what the man is doing. They are not comfortable, but they can't do anything. That's the truth.
Oh, so it is possible this may all go through, continue and go through. They will borrow the $650 million or sell it to Petro SA if they find an agreement sort of, and then nobody will stop them.
These guys can do anything and go away. What we can do is what we are doing, talking. That's it. That's the reality.
But there are more tools available to you.
Go to court.
No, not go to court. You have to be part of our approval of certain things.
But they are disregarding it. And the only way is to sanction the finance minister through a censure in Parliament. We attempted it, they walked away. Then the minority alone cannot censure the finance minister. That is the truth. Look, let's be honest and just face the reality. The man is doing an illegality. You either take him to court. If that appears that you even agree with me that for this court, we should hold on. The second one is to censure him in Parliament. And when we attempted it, they walked away and left us hanging. So we can only use you, the media, and advocate, and hope that all Ghanaians will join us. Because when they see anger I'm sure at least they will reason up.
So shares that belong to us can be mortgaged by the finance minister under terms that would not be scrutinized by our members of parliament. That's where we are now.
That is what he's trying to do. We would use every legitimate means in parliament. Like you said, we'll try other tools, including moving motions in parliament and hoping that some of the majority members at least would reason with us. Tuesday, I've already spoken to minority leader. We're even writing a letter to the finance minister, and we'll copy the IMF. We'll copy the IMF. Because now it does appear that they're listening to the IMF more than any other person. So we'll copy the IMF. We'll write to Petro SA as well. And we'll write to Letasco and draw all of them their attention that what they are doing is illegal. Quote the various provisions of the Constitution and the laws. And when, not if, when we assume office, January 7, 2025, let me tell them, we will not honor these illegal agreements. We won't honor them. We also have commitments. We also have work to do. So these companies, if you are listening, if you go and sign on to this illegal agreement, and you think that the next NDC government that will be sworn in January 7, 2025, will honor these illegal agreements, please, just take it out of your mind. We won't honor them. If you won't go to court, we will not go to court. But when we assume office, we will not honor any illegal agreements. It's as simple as that.
No, we're looking forward to your resumption in Parliament. We'll see where we'll go with this issue. But thank you for speaking to us.
Thank you. I'll share the documents with you.
Yes, please do. Please do.
No,
Please do. Please do. It will be very, very helpful for this discussion. Honorable John Jinapor is member of Parliament for Yape Kusogu. He's a ranking member on the Mines and Energy Committee. So this is money that belongs to us.